This morning, before the world asks anything of us, before the noise gathers its courage and rises, we come quietly and say, Lord, make me ready for this day. Not armed with certainty, not dressed in perfection, but open like the sky at dawn, open like a heart that knows it will be tested and still chooses hope. Morning is not just a moment on the clock, it is a chance at becoming. It is the soft mercy of another beginning. When we pray at daybreak, we are not begging for escape from trouble. We are asking for the strength to stand upright inside it. We are asking to meet this day with clear eyes, steady hands, and a spirit that remembers who it belongs to. So this prayer is not whispered out of fear, but spoken out of faith. Faith that whatever this day holds, joy or burden, laughter or labor, we will not face it alone. Faith that readiness is not about knowing what will happen, but about trusting the one who goes before us. Before the sun lifts its golden eyelid, before the streets clear their throats with traffic and expectation, there is a sacred pause available to us. In that pause lives surrender, not the kind that bows in defeat, but the kind that stands tall enough to say, I do not have to carry this day alone. Surrender before the day begins is an act of holy wisdom. It is the soul's decision to loosen its grip on control, to unclench the fists it did not realize were tight through the night. We wake believing, sometimes unconsciously, that survival depends on how well we manage, plan, and predict. But morning prayer interrupts that illusion. It reminds us that breath itself was given, not earned, and that the same grace that carried us through yesterday has already arrived for today. When we say, Lord, make me ready for this day, we are not handing over our responsibility. We are handing over our arrogance. We are confessing that we do not see the whole road, even if we know how to drive. We are admitting that wisdom does not rise automatically with the alarm clock. It must be received. It must be invited. There is a quiet courage in surrender. The world often mistakes surrender for weakness, but prayerful surrender is strength that knows its source. It is the choice to begin the day grounded instead of scattered, guided instead of driven, anchored instead of anxious. It is saying, I will move today, but I will not move alone. I will act, but I will not pretend I am God. Surrender in the morning reshapes our posture toward life. It teaches us to approach the day not as conquerors, but as stewards. We do not own the hours ahead, we are entrusted with them. Every conversation, every task, every interruption becomes less of a burden and more of a responsibility handled with care. When we surrender early, we stop demanding that the day obey us, and we begin asking how we can be faithful within it. There is something deeply human about wanting certainty before we step forward. We want guarantees that our efforts will be rewarded, that our kindness will be returned, that our plans will succeed. But surrender says, even if none of that happens, I will still walk in obedience. It teaches us to release the outcome while remaining committed to the process. That kind of release does not make us passive. It makes us peaceful. Morning surrender also cleans the residue of yesterday from our spirits. We do not wake as blank pages. We wake carrying unfinished conversations, lingering regrets, quiet resentments, and hopes bruised by delay. Surrender places all of that on the altar. It says, what I could not fix last night, I give to you this morning. What still aches, you can hold. What still confuses me, you can guide. There is healing in that exchange. The soul, relieved of pretending to be self-sufficient, can finally breathe. And in that breath we become ready, not because the day has changed, but because we have been realigned. Surrender before the day begins also softens how we meet other people. When we have already yielded our pride in prayer, we are less defensive in conversation. We listen better, we interrupt less. We respond with more grace because we are not fighting to protect an ego we already placed in God's hands. Surrendered people are not spineless, they are spacious, they have room for others because they are not crowded by self-importance. This surrender is especially powerful when the day ahead looks heavy. Some mornings arrive with shadows. There are days we wake already tired, already worried, already bracing for difficulty. On those mornings, surrender is not poetic. It is necessary. It is the soul's way of saying, I cannot do this by willpower alone. And God, who has never been offended by honesty, meets us there. To surrender before the day begins is to trust that God's presence will show up not only in the moments we expect, but in the ones we dread. It is believing that divine guidance is not reserved for sanctuaries and quiet rooms, but is available in meetings, kitchens, traffic jams, classrooms, hospital rooms, and crowded streets. Surrender makes every place a potential meeting ground with grace. This kind of prayer also teaches patience. When we have surrendered our timeline to God, delays do not feel like punishments. They feel like pauses with purpose. We stop rushing life as if it were late, and start walking it as if it were meaningful. Surrender slows us down enough to notice mercy hiding in ordinary moments. And let us be honest, surrender is not a one-time act. It is a daily discipline, because control is seductive. By midday we may find ourselves gripping again, worrying again, pushing again. That is why the morning matters. It sets the tone. It plants a reminder deep in the soul that can be returned to when the noise grows loud. I already gave this day to God. Surrender before the day begins is not about shrinking our dreams. It is about placing them in hands strong enough to shape them wisely. It is trusting that what God has for us will not miss us, and what misses us was never meant to define us. So when we pray this prayer at dawn, we are doing something brave. We are choosing trust over tension, faith over fear, humility over illusion. We are stepping into the day, not as masters of our fate, but as partners with grace. And in that partnership we find a readiness deeper than preparation, a readiness rooted in surrender, steady as the morning light. We wake each morning with questions perched on our shoulders. What will happen today? Who will challenge us? What news will arrive uninvited? The human heart has always longed to know what is coming next, believing that certainty is the same as safety. But this prayer, Lord, make me ready for this day, gently corrects us. It teaches us that readiness is not about prediction. It is about preparation of the spirit. Spiritual preparation is the quiet work done before the noise begins. It is the inner alignment that happens when we admit we cannot foresee the day, but we can decide how we will meet it. We may not know the questions life will ask us by noon, but we can prepare the character that will answer. We may not know what doors will open or close, but we can prepare a heart that remains steady in either case. Prediction tries to control the future. Spiritual preparation surrenders to it without fear. Prediction scans the horizon anxiously, trying to outrun disappointment. Preparation plants the feet firmly in faith, trusting that whatever approaches will be met with grace sufficient for the moment. One seeks information, the other seeks transformation. When we pray in the morning, we are not asking God to reveal every twist in the road. We are asking for the kind of strength that bends without breaking. We are asking for discernment sharp enough to choose kindness when anger feels justified, patience when haste feels efficient, silence when ego demands speech. This is preparation that cannot be downloaded or scheduled. It must be cultivated. Spiritual preparation teaches us that the most important work of the day happens before the day ever touches us. Before emails, before conversations, before expectations. It happens when the soul is still tender, still honest, still aware of its dependence. In that moment, we are shaped not for success alone, but for integrity. The trouble with prediction is that it makes us rigid. When we believe we know how the day should unfold, we resist it when it doesn't obey. We grow frustrated, defensive, even bitter. But spiritual preparation makes us flexible. It allows us to adapt without losing ourselves. Prepared spirits can adjust without collapsing because their foundation is not circumstance, but faith. There is a deep mercy in not knowing everything ahead of time. If we knew every heartbreak in advance, we might refuse to love. If we knew every obstacle, we might never begin. God, in wisdom, withholds the details and offers presence instead. Spiritual preparation accepts that exchange. It says, I do not need all the answers if I am not abandoned. Prepared hearts move through the day differently. They do not panic at interruptions because they understand that life rarely follows scripts. They do not crumble at criticism because their worth was already settled in prayer. They do not grow arrogant at success because they know they did not arrive there alone. Preparation humbles and strengthens at the same time. This readiness also reshapes our reactions. Life does not defeat us in the big moments first. It wears us down in the small ones, a careless word, a delayed response, a misunderstanding. Without preparation, these moments accumulate and harden us. With preparation, they pass through us without poisoning the spirit. We respond instead of react. We breathe before we speak. We remember who we are. Spiritual preparation teaches us to expect God, not ease. It removes the false promise that faith guarantees smooth days. Instead, it offers something better. The assurance that no matter how uneven the ground, we will not walk it alone. Prepared spirits do not ask, "Will this be hard?" They ask, "Will I be faithful in it?" There are days when preparation feels invisible. Nothing dramatic happens. No miracle announces itself. But later we realize we answered calmly where we once would have shouted. We forgave more quickly. We endured without bitterness. That is the quiet evidence of a prepared spirit. It does not boast, it simply holds. This kind of readiness also protects us from despair when the day surprises us with pain. Grief does not send a calendar invite. Loss does not ask permission. On those days, prediction would have failed us anyway, but preparation gives us language for sorrow, space for tears, and strength to keep breathing when words run out. It reminds us that faith is not denial, it is endurance with hope. Spiritual preparation is not about perfection. It does not make us flawless or unshakable. It makes us honest. Honest about our limits. Honest about our need for help. Honest about our dependence on grace. And honesty, more than control, is what keeps us human. Each morning when we pray instead of predict, we are choosing relationship over information. We are choosing to trust God's character rather than demand God's schedule. We are saying, "I don't need to see the whole staircase if I can trust the one who asked me to climb." Prepared spirits recognize that the day itself is a teacher. Every encounter has a lesson. Every challenge has an invitation to grow, to soften, to choose love again. When we are spiritually prepared, we do not waste these lessons by resisting them. We receive them with humility. And perhaps the greatest gift of spiritual preparation is peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on things going well, but the deep peace that remains even when they do not. This peace does not come from knowing what will happen next. It comes from knowing who walks with us now. So when we pray, "Lord, make me ready for this day," we are not asking for forecasts. We are asking for fortitude. We are asking for wisdom that fits into ordinary moments and courage that does not need applause. We are asking to be shaped on the inside so that whatever the outside brings, we can meet it with grace. That is readiness. Not prediction, but preparation. Not certainty, but faith. And it is more than enough for this day. Alignment of will and purpose. Every morning when the first rays of sunlight pierce the horizon and the dew still clings to the earth like tiny reminders of yesterday's mercy, there is a call within the human spirit, a call to align. Align with what? With the self. With the world. No. Align with something far greater than the mind can grasp, far deeper than the body can reach. Align with the purpose that is whispered by God and the will that beats inside your own heart. This is the sacred work of morning prayer, a seeking, a bending, a becoming that asks not for ease but for truth. To align one's will with purpose is to open the day like a letter we have been waiting for all our lives. Many of us wake and stumble blindly into our hours, chasing errands, ambitions, expectations, rewards. We check the clock as if it contains the meaning of life. We chase approval as if someone else holds our worth. And we plan as if time itself belongs to us. But alignment teaches us otherwise. Alignment reminds us that life is not a ledger of achievements but a canvas of intention. Alignment whispers that the smallest act done with love is more powerful than the grandest plan done with self-interest. When we ask God to make us ready for this day, we are asking for more than the strength to rise from our beds or the energy to face another round of obligations. We are asking for clarity. clarity to distinguish between the distractions and the callings, between the noise and the voice of God, clarity to know not only what must be done but why it must be done. For without that knowing, every action becomes hollow, every word becomes a shadow, and every hour passes like wind through empty hands. Purpose is not a list. It is not a title or a promotion or a position. It is a flame burning within us, small perhaps, yet relentless, demanding to be noticed, demanding to be fed. Will is the hand that tends that flame, shaping its direction, shielding it from gusts, nurturing its growth. When will and purpose are out of alignment, the flame sputters, flickers, struggles to stay alive. We find ourselves living a life of motion, but no meaning. But when they meet, when they walk hand in hand like companions who understand each other deeply, we move not only with intention but with power. Our days become poetry in motion. Our choices become declarations. Our labor becomes a song of devotion. Alignment requires courage. It requires a fierce willingness to look inward and recognize the corners of the heart where fear, pride, and convenience have taken residence. It asks us to question our motives, to examine the roots of our desires. Do we chase this goal because it will feed our ego or because it serves a higher good? Do we hold on to resentment because it protects us, or because letting go will free the purpose God planted inside us? Morning prayer calls us to this interrogation, to this gentle but unflinching honesty. Only then can the soul straighten like a tree reaching toward the sky, ready to bear the fruits it was designed to bear. When will and purpose are aligned, we begin to move through the world with a kind of sacred rhythm. Decisions are not frantic or desperate. We are not tossed about by every whim or opinion. Instead, we recognize the path before us, sometimes winding and steep, sometimes broad and inviting, and we step forward with conviction. Alignment does not make the path easy, it rarely does, but it makes the journey coherent. It makes the burdens we carry lighter because we understand why we carry them, and we learn to distinguish between what is ours to bear and what belongs in God's hands. Consider the ordinary moments, the colleague who frustrates, the child who tests, the stranger who challenges. Alignment does not remove the difficulty. It does not grant us immunity from irritation, anger, or disappointment, but it equips us to respond not with reflex but with intention. We learn to act from a place of purpose rather than from a place of habit, woundedness, or ego. We begin to realize that each interaction, each choice, each word is part of a greater tapestry. Every moment becomes an opportunity to live out our calling. Every encounter a mirror, reflecting the will that has been shaped and aligned. Spiritual alignment is a daily endeavor. It cannot be achieved once and tucked away like a certificate. Each sunrise is a new chance to recalibrate, to examine where we have drifted, to return to the center of what matters. Morning prayer is the compass. It reminds us that even if the world spins chaotically, our inner axis can remain steady. It calls us to renew our commitment to walk in integrity, to move through the day as vessels of grace and instruments of intention. Sometimes alignment requires patience. Purpose often reveals itself slowly. Will often resist clarity because it fears commitment, fears sacrifice, fears vulnerability. But the gentle persistence of prayer cultivates the soil of our hearts. It softens the rigidity of impatience. It clears the weeds of self-doubt. It waters the seeds of courage. And in time the alignment becomes evident, not as a sudden revelation, but as a quiet knowing, a peace that surpasses understanding, a light in the chest that whispers, "You are walking rightly, you are walking true." Alignment is also liberation. When our will moves in harmony with purpose, we are no longer prisoners of comparison, of other people's expectations, of fleeting trends or shallow applause. We act with integrity because integrity has become our rhythm. We pursue goals because they resonate with our deepest calling, not because they look impressive on paper. We speak because words carry meaning, not because they demand attention. And we love because love is the essence of purpose, the thread that binds us to God, to humanity, and to ourselves. Morning alignment is a reminder that the day is not random. It may appear chaotic, uncertain, full of surprises, but each breath, each decision, each encounter can be infused with divine intent if our spirit is oriented correctly. We cannot control all events, but we can control how we meet them. We cannot script every outcome, but we can shape the response. Purpose gives direction, will gives momentum. Together they are a force that transforms ordinary hours into acts of faith, into deeds of courage, into moments that echo with meaning long after the day ends. And so, when we pray at dawn, we are asking not merely to survive the hours ahead. We are asking for the wisdom to see the shape of the day as God sees it. We are asking for the courage to walk in that shape, even when it challenges comfort. We are asking for alignment so our will bends to purpose, so our steps are steady, so our hearts do not wander in search of validation, but move decisively toward service, truth, and love. This alignment is not easy. It requires self-examination, humility, patience, and above all, surrender. It requires us to listen carefully to the stirrings of the soul, to discern between fleeting impulses and enduring callings, and to trust that the divine has placed within us the strength to follow faithfully. Every prayer in the morning, every breath offered in awareness is a small act of alignment. Every choice made with intention is another stitch in the fabric of a life that is whole, coherent, and beautiful. By the time the sun rises fully and the world clambers awake, the one who prays is no longer simply a participant in the day. The one who prays is a conduit of purpose, a bearer of will aligned with the divine. Obstacles still exist. Challenges still arise, but the heart, attuned and oriented, moves through them differently. There is a rhythm, a grace, a power that carries the prepared soul through uncertainty with courage, clarity, and compassion. Alignment of will and purpose transforms ordinary mornings into sacred beginnings. It turns breakfast into blessing, conversation into communion, work into worship, struggle into growth. It is a daily revolution, quiet yet unstoppable, that begins with a prayer whispered in the dark before the dawn, a prayer that says simply, "Lord, make me ready for this day." And when we rise, aligned and steady, we are ready not just to face the day, but to become the day's blessing. To move through it with intention, to respond with integrity, to act with courage, and to live fully in the truth of our purpose. This is the gift of alignment. This is the promise of preparation. This is the sacred power of morning prayer. Every day carries battles, some that the eyes can see and some that hide in the chambers of the heart. When the sun rises, the world appears bright and simple, yet beneath its golden light, struggles are already stirring. The seen battles are easy to recognize, the deadlines, the errands, the conflicts that call for attention. They knock at the door, demanding action. The unseen battles, however, are silent, relentless, and often more formidable. They are the storms within, the fears that whisper, the doubts that gnaw, the sorrow that lingers. Morning prayer is the shield that equips the spirit to meet both with courage. When we pray, "Lord, make me ready for this day," we are asking not only for strength to confront the visible challenges, but for fortitude to endure the hidden ones that no one else can see. The visible battles often masquerade as ordinary tasks. They appear as meetings, responsibilities, deadlines, and interactions. These are the skirmishes that life stages daily, sometimes in gentle reminders, sometimes in fierce demands. To face them without preparation is to step into war without armor, vulnerable and reactive. Prayer in the quiet hours before the day begins grants a kind of readiness that is both calm and potent. It is a strength that does not come from muscle or skill alone, but from a steady spirit rooted in faith. When we are fortified in prayer, we approach the visible battles with clarity. We see them as opportunities to practice patience, assertiveness, compassion, and resilience, rather than as insurmountable obstacles. But the unseen battles, the ones that do not announce themselves, require a different kind of strength. They are the silent anxieties that curl around the chest, the insecurities that taint the joy of accomplishment, the griefs that sneak into laughter and shadow it. These battles do not wait for convenient moments. They rise unbidden, sometimes in the quietest hours, sometimes in the middle of bustling streets. Spiritual preparation equips the heart to recognize them without fear. It teaches the soul to respond with presence rather than panic, with hope rather than despair. Prayer becomes the armory of the unseen, a quiet wellspring from which courage flows. Strength for both seen and unseen battles comes not from pretending to be invincible. It comes from acknowledging our limitations while trusting in a power greater than ourselves. It comes from admitting our vulnerabilities and allowing divine guidance to fill the gaps where our human strength falls short. There is bravery in that admission, bravery that surpasses any display of physical endurance. To stand and say, "I cannot do this alone," is to wield a strength far deeper than the body. It is to touch the eternal. When we cultivate this strength through prayer, we also cultivate discernment. We begin to see which battles are ours to fight and which are best left in the hands of God. This is a wisdom that comes not from ambition but from humility. It teaches us that some struggles, visible or invisible, are not meant to be conquered by sheer will. Some are meant to shape the spirit, to teach patience, perseverance, and surrender. The strength gained in prayer allows us to navigate these battles without losing ourselves, without bitterness, without the exhaustion that comes from resisting what cannot be changed. Strength is not only about endurance, it is about courage. It is the courage to face criticism without crumbling, to confront injustice without hatred, to act when fear whispers retreat. The unseen battles often attack the mind and heart, planting seeds of doubt that can grow into paralyzing despair. Morning prayer fortifies the will against these subtle assaults. It reminds us that even when the world cannot see the struggle, the spirit is never abandoned. We are reminded that victory is not always visible, that triumph often resides in maintaining integrity, kindness, and faith when no one is watching. This strength also brings compassion. When we recognize that every human carries battles unseen, we are gentler with ourselves and with others. We approach people not only as they appear on the surface, but as whole beings, bearing burdens that may remain hidden. Prayer expands our capacity for empathy. It allows us to respond to aggression with calm, to counter frustration with patience, to answer misunderstanding with clarity and grace. Our unseen strength becomes a gift, extending beyond ourselves into the lives of those we touch. The world will not always honor this strength. It may demand immediate results, measure success superficially, or overlook the quiet courage that sustains us. But spiritual preparation teaches us that what matters is not recognition, but steadfastness. Seen or unseen, battles shape character. The victories that count are those of the heart, remaining honest when dishonesty tempts, staying compassionate when anger rises, choosing faith when fear threatens. These victories are invisible to the world, yet they resonate in eternity. Morning prayer is the anchor that holds the spirit steady before the storms. It is a deliberate act of fortification, a conscious commitment to readiness. It reminds us that while battles may vary in form and intensity, the grace to face them is constant. It prepares the mind to think clearly, the heart to feel rightly, the soul to endure faithfully. Prayer is both shield and sword, protecting and empowering, comforting and challenging. In cultivating strength for both seen and unseen battles, we learn patience. Life rarely delivers challenges in neat, predictable packages. Some days the visible and invisible battles overlap, pressing on every side. Without preparation, the soul might crumble under the weight, but with strength rooted in prayer, the spirit moves through the day with resilience. We learn to stagger under the burden if necessary, to pause when overwhelmed, to breathe deeply, and to continue with faith. Patience is the quiet companion of strength, teaching endurance and perseverance when victory is not immediate. Strength also carries humility. When we recognize that some battles, especially the unseen ones, cannot be overcome by human effort alone, we are reminded of our dependence on the divine. This humility does not diminish power, it refines it. True strength grows when it acknowledges limits and seeks guidance, when it balances action with trust, courage with surrender. Prayer in the morning cultivates this humility, reminding us that no matter how capable we may be, we are part of a larger story, sustained by a source beyond ourselves. The seen and unseen battles are intertwined. Success in the visible struggles often depends on mastery over the unseen ones. Confidence comes not from public praise but from inner conviction. Patience in relationships comes not from convenience but from emotional strength. Leadership is effective not because of strategy alone, but because of the courage to confront fear and doubt within oneself. The morning prayer that asks for readiness equips the spirit to meet both realms simultaneously, so the outer victories are matched by inner fortitude. Finally, strength for these battles cultivates hope. The day, with all its uncertainty and challenge, becomes a field for courage and endurance rather than a source of dread. Prayer reminds us that each battle, seen or unseen, carries potential for growth, for insight, for transformation. It assures us that we are not alone, that divine presence walks with us in silence, and that perseverance is a form of faith expressed through action. Strength becomes a habit, a rhythm, a foundation upon which the day's victories are built. So we rise each morning asking to be made ready. We ask for armor to meet what is evident and resilience to endure what is hidden. We seek clarity, courage, compassion, and faith, so that when the world confronts us with trials and when our hearts struggle quietly in the shadows, we are neither broken nor defeated. Instead, we stand upright, grounded in prayer, fortified for both seen and unseen battles, carrying within us the knowledge that strength is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of grace to move through it fully. It is in this strength, cultivated before the day begins, that we find the power to live authentically, to act courageously, and to respond with love. Each moment, each encounter, each challenge becomes an opportunity to exercise that strength, to honor the unseen and the seen alike. And by the day's end, whether in victory or in quiet perseverance, we know that we have been ready, not because the battles were easy, but because our hearts were prepared. Morning is a gift, wrapped in silence, gilded with the first golden light of dawn. It is not simply the turning of the clock or the rise of the sun. It is the invitation to begin again, to step into life with the courage that only comes when we remember we are not alone. Each day when we pray, "Lord, make me ready for this day," we are asking for more than guidance or strength. We are asking for renewal of faith and hope, of spirit and vision, so that no matter what yesterday held, today can be met with open eyes and an open heart. Faith is not a possession, it is a journey. It is not earned, it is received. It does not grow in isolation, but thrives in communion with God, with others, with the quiet places inside ourselves where truth lives. Every morning is an opportunity to return to that truth, to remember that life, even when heavy and complicated, is suffused with grace. Renewal begins with a pause, a breath, a prayer spoken in humility and trust. It begins with the recognition that each day is a blank page waiting for our choices, our courage, our love to write upon it. Hope, like faith, is not guaranteed. It is cultivated. It grows in a heart that refuses to be hardened by disappointment, that chooses to see light even when the world presents shadow. Morning prayer is an act of hope itself. To pray before the day begins is to declare that we believe in possibilities yet unseen, that we trust in mercy yet unfelt, that we open ourselves to joy yet to be discovered. This is not a naive hope. It is hope born of resilience, of endurance, of a soul that knows both grief and triumph, and still dares to believe. Daily renewal of faith and hope requires honesty. We do not rise pretending to be unbroken, flawless, or unwavering. We rise as humans, bearing yesterday's bruises, today's anxieties, and the unknown of tomorrow. In that vulnerability there is power. When we bring our fears, our doubts, our regrets to God each morning, we are not weakened, we are strengthened. Renewal is not the absence of struggle, but the presence of a spirit willing to try again, willing to trust again, willing to hope again. Faith and hope are intertwined. Faith is the foundation, the certainty that God is present and powerful, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. Hope is the fruit, the outward expression that life holds promise, that love can be found, that joy is possible, even in small increments. To pray each morning is to water this garden of the soul. It is to breathe life into belief, to fan the embers of expectation, to remind ourselves that we are part of a story far larger than our fears, disappointments, or limitations. This renewal is essential because life is relentless. Days can weigh heavy, carrying tasks, responsibilities, conflicts, and unforeseen hardships. Without intentional renewal, faith can grow thin, hope can wither, and the heart can grow weary. Morning prayer interrupts the cycle of exhaustion. It restores perspective, reminding us that we do not face the world alone, that our value is not measured by success or failure, and that each day carries opportunities for grace. In this sacred pause, we are equipped to meet challenges without losing our spirit. Daily renewal also shapes how we see others. When faith is fresh and hope is alive, we are more patient, more compassionate, more generous. We recognize that others, too, carry burdens invisible to the eye. We respond with gentleness rather than judgment, with understanding rather than criticism. This is the outward manifestation of inner renewal. Our hearts, filled with faith and hope, spill over into kindness, empathy, and love. The prayer we whisper in the quiet morning becomes a song of mercy and courage throughout the day. Renewal requires discipline, but not rigidity. It is not about rote repetition or empty words. It is about deliberate intention. It is choosing each morning to recommit, to trust again, to love again, to rise again. The body may be tired, the mind weary, the heart heavy, but the soul remembers its source. Daily prayer is a rhythm that reminds us of this source. It reconnects us to our strength, our calling, and our capacity for goodness. It is a practice of returning, of resetting, of saying, "Today I will not be overcome by despair. Today I will move with faith. Today I will choose hope." Faith and hope, once renewed, become courage. They embolden us to face what we cannot control. They steady us when storms approach, seen or unseen. They remind us that the measure of a life is not how easily we avoid struggle, but how faithfully we endure it. This courage is quiet but undeniable. It does not demand recognition or applause. It simply rises from the well of a renewed spirit, carrying us forward when the day's challenges press in. Renewal is also about perspective. Each morning offers a chance to see life with fresh eyes, to release yesterday's disappointments, regrets, or failures, and to greet today with clarity. It is the practice of setting aside bitterness, resentment, or fear, and choosing instead the lens of faith. It is the conscious decision to notice blessings, however small, and to allow hope to color our thoughts and actions. In this daily act of spiritual hygiene, the soul becomes resilient, receptive, and radiant. Daily renewal is not an event. It is a habit. The first moments of the day, when the world is quiet and possibilities are many, are sacred. They are the canvas upon which the rest of the day is painted. By renewing faith and hope each morning, we prepare to face challenges with integrity, to celebrate joy with gratitude, to encounter others with love, and to navigate life with courage. The strength, clarity, and peace gained in these moments become our foundation for every conversation, every task, every decision. The beauty of daily renewal is that it is never exhausted. Faith and hope are not finite resources. They are rivers that flow continually when tended. The prayer we speak in the morning refreshes these rivers, allowing them to nourish us and others throughout the day. And when night comes, even if the day has been difficult, the practice of renewal leaves us prepared to begin again. Each morning becomes a rebirth, a testament to resilience, a sacred opportunity to recommit to living fully, honestly, and faithfully. To embrace daily renewal is to embrace life itself. It is to recognize that every day carries gifts and challenges, victories and lessons. It is to trust that even when the world seems heavy or unfair, there is a divine presence that guides, strengthens, and upholds. It is to understand that hope is never lost and faith is never wasted. And it is to remember that our response to each new dawn, our choice to rise, pray, and move with intention, shapes not only our day but our lives. So when we speak this prayer, "Lord, make me ready for this day," we are not merely asking for protection or guidance. We are asking for the renewal that allows us to stand firm in our faith, to see possibilities where others see obstacles, and to carry hope into every corner of our lives. We are choosing to meet the day with courage, with compassion, and with clarity. And in doing so, we are reminded that each morning is a sacred invitation to begin again, to rise, to believe and to hope, faithful and unafraid, ready for the blessings and the burdens, the joys and the challenges that await us. In the quiet of the morning, when prayer becomes breath and breath becomes life, we are renewed. Faith is restored, hope blossoms, and the soul steps forward, prepared to live fully, love freely, and trust completely. This is the power of daily renewal, the power to rise again and again with grace, courage, and unwavering faith.